from a war that must be won in the name of truth. With our soldiers so brave, your freedom we will save. With our rifles and grenades and...
Before the bombing of Pearl Harbor, there were over 100,000 Japanese Americans living in the west coast of the United States. They lived the American dream, owning businesses, having families, and fulfilling their lives like any other citizen would. They were happy, proud to be Americans. But things were to change, almost instantly.
You just can't believe the joy when I finally got I was going. Oh, I flew through the sky and my convictions could not lie.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
Then I looked into her.
The United States deemed it necessary to remove all Japanese Americans from coastal areas, most of which were children and United States citizens. No charges were brought against the Japanese, and they weren't even given a hearing. All families were registered and given identification tags that designated their members and positions. Since the families were forced to move very quickly, there were losses estimated in the billions of dollars.
I want to see my family, my wife.
Japanese Americans were the intended target, and that was no secret. Roosevelt had been suspicious of this population since at least 1936. In this case, he was reacting to specific reports of evidence of Japanese espionage activity, false reports by a particularly anti-Japanese general.
Eyeless in the morning sun, you were pale and mild, a modern girl, taken with thoughts still prone to care, making tea in your underwear. You went out in the yard to find.
There were more Japanese in Los Angeles than in any other area. So as a first step, all Japanese were required to move from critical areas such as these. But of course, this limited evacuation was a solution to only part of the problem.
The US government released propaganda in order to ease the mind of the general public. This video illustrated that the massive migration of people and their new residents in the concentration camps were enjoyed by fellow Americans of Japanese descent who wholeheartedly gave themselves up for imprisonment. That wasn't the case. Children were separated from their families. Japanese American citizens were locked away just because of the way they looked. Many were loyal Americans. They were promised that no matter their race, their rights would never be taken away. This promise was now broken.
Most of the people there suffer from sore throats, and the dust storms are terrific. Can't see more than a couple of feet ahead. Many of the residents get nosebleeds. The fine sand seems to wreak havoc on almost everything. The first 2 years will be hard. How many will be able to live through it and come out triumphant?
Boy, it was a real traumatic type of living, where you're in the former stalls where the pigs and the cows and everything else were temporary shacks that just the walls went up so many feet off the ground, and families of 6 and 7 were crowded into one little spot. I think intentionally I forgot a lot of Camp Harmony. I hate to use the word harmony, but it was just not a very good experience.
To many, he was just another Japanese evacuee from Alaska. He pioneered in Washington when it was still a territory. He knew the lure of Yukon Gold of the Seven Seas. He never knew Japan.
Amachi camp guided by very young soldiers. One time soldier stopped me and, "Hey you wanna talk to me?" And he said, "Yeah. Are you a human being?" I said, "Yes, don't you think so? Yeah, you look like a human being." But when I came from South Carolina, they said that the Jap is not a human being. They are like a gorilla. So if you want to kill them, that's what I learned in the king. And then I looked from top every day, and you people look like a human being.
We were summarily rounded up and put into these barbed wire, sentry tower, machine guns pointed. When I made the night runs to the latrine, searchlights followed me. You know, it was a concentration camp, pure and simple. Machine guns pointed at us, armed soldiers, barbed wire. And I could see the barbed wire fence and the sentry towers and the machine gun right outside my schoolhouse window as I recited the words, "With liberty and justice for all."
Internment was starting to draw the attention of the public. Many Supreme Court trials started to arouse the thought of internment being unconstitutional. This brought pressure on the United States government's shoulders. Hidebayashi versus the United States, Yasui versus the United States, and Korematsu versus the United States. These lawsuits placed a lot of pressure on the United States government and made many people question the constitutionality of the internment. Eventually, the U.S. government and the people of the United States decided enough was enough. The internship was headed for a long-awaited closure.
It was hard to explain to somebody what was it like in camp, because we never tell them the truth what it was like in camp. It was horrible.
The U.S., almost 40 years after taking everything from the Japanese Americans, paid them back. The internment camps have been ruled unconstitutional. It is now looked back as a dark chapter in American history. Not very present in textbooks and curriculum, the internment is overlooked by society today.